For years, solar energy was seen as a distant dream, a clean but costly ideal, reserved for science fiction or satellite missions. That dream is no longer distant. The solar revolution has already begun. Quietly but rapidly, it's spreading across continents, reshaping landscapes, reinventing power grids, and even redrawing the world's geopolitical map. In 2024, for the first time in history, solar energy surpassed coal in the European Union's electricity mix. In many countries, it has become the cheapest way to generate power. What once seemed impossible is now inevitable. The race for clean energy is accelerating, driven by climate urgency, technological breakthroughs, and shifting global power dynamics. Solar panels now cover rooftops, deserts, mountains, and even lakes. But they're also aiming beyond Earth, with bold plans to harvest solar power directly from space. From Chile's Atacama Desert to the hills of Inner Mongolia. From war-torn Ukraine to densely packed Asian cities, the pattern is clear. Decentralized, produce, adapt, survive, and push forward. In this episode, we explore the forces behind the solar surge. We'll look at China's overwhelming dominance in solar manufacturing, the strategic power of solar energy in conflict zones, the shift from centralized plants to smart local grids, and the ambitious efforts to beam energy from orbit. This isn't just about adopting solar, it's about how fast we can make the transition. Across the globe, solar energy is not just growing, it's scaling. From sun-scorched deserts to remote mountain ranges, from floating platforms on lakes to rooftops in crowded cities. Solar panels are transforming the physical world at a staggering pace. These aren't isolated installations. They are massive, coordinated efforts to reshape how humanity generates power. In the Atacama Desert of Chile, a sea of solar panels stretches to the horizon. Since 2020, Chile has doubled its solar output, building one of the most ambitious clean energy networks in Latin America. But this is not an exception. It's part of a global trend. By 2035, solar power could supply up to 30% of the world's electricity, according to the International Energy Agency. That projection was unthinkable just a few years ago. What made it possible is a perfect storm of demand, innovation, and supply. And no country embodies this shift more than China. China now produces over 80% of the world's solar panel components. In Inner Mongolia alone, entire regions have been converted into mega solar farms. Thousands of square kilometers of panels built at a speed only possible with massive industrial coordination. The goal: power Beijing and other major cities with clean domestic energy. But China's influence goes far beyond its borders. Its overproduction of panels has caused prices to plummet worldwide. For developing nations, this is a golden opportunity. For Western manufacturers, it's a warning sign. The global solar economy is no longer emerging. It's here, it's competitive, and it's deeply shaped by industrial power. Even more astonishing, the solar frontier is no longer limited to Earth. Several nations, including Japan, China, and the US, are developing orbital solar stations that could beam energy from space. These projects, once confined to science fiction, are now entering prototype phases. The future of solar is both terrestrial and cosmic, and it's expanding faster than we imagined. In moments of crisis, energy becomes more than infrastructure. It becomes survival. Nowhere is that more evident than in Ukraine, where the devastation of war has laid bare the fragility of centralized power grids. With over 70% of the country's electricity generation capacity destroyed by targeted attacks, communities have been forced to rethink how they produce and sustain energy. Solar power has emerged as a lifeline. Rooftops that once collected rain are now lined with panels that collect sunlight. In Kyiv, a maternity hospital now relies on solar energy to keep incubators running during frequent blackouts. Schools have installed rooftop arrays, powering critical systems and offering charging stations for flashlights and communication devices. In a country under siege, the sun became an ally. But this shift isn't just about war, it's about resilience. Solar energy's decentralized nature allows it to bypass the vulnerabilities of traditional grids. Where diesel runs out and transmission lines collapse, solar panels continue to deliver. Installations can be rapid, modular, and increasingly affordable. allowing even ordinary citizens to adapt. What's happening in Ukraine mirrors a global trend: the rise of energy sovereignty. In Gaza, Syria, and Lebanon, as well as across rural Africa and Asia, communities are using solar to gain control over their energy futures. The era of dependence on faraway power plants is giving way to self-reliant microgrids and local autonomy. And this has geopolitical consequences. As countries pursue energy independence through renewables, they also shift alliances, challenge fossil fuel hegemony, and rewrite the terms of international cooperation. China's dominance in solar panel production has placed it at the center of this transformation. Not just as a supplier, but as a strategic force. Its interests now aligned with accelerating the global energy transition. Even as it challenges the old order of oil and gas exporters, solar energy is no longer just a technology. It's a form of resistance, a tool of empowerment, and a silent actor in conflicts where light is life. The global energy transition is not just about producing cleaner power. It's about changing how we think about energy itself. For over a century, electricity flowed in one direction, from massive centralized plants to passive consumers. But solar energy, especially when installed on rooftops and integrated with battery systems, has flipped that model upside down. Now, homes are no longer just places that consume power. They can generate, store, and redistribute it. This shift challenges the very foundation of the traditional grid. Instead of depending on a handful of mega power plants, countries are beginning to operate with hundreds or even thousands of smaller, distributed energy sources. The result? A more flexible, localized, and intelligent energy system. In places like Switzerland, where large-scale solar farms are limited by geography and regulation, the focus is on integrating solar into existing buildings. Smart systems predict energy production, store surplus in thermal batteries or water heaters, and even coordinate with electric vehicles to balance demand throughout the day. In this new ecosystem, your car, your heater, and your rooftop are all part of the grid. But intelligence isn't just about infrastructure, it's about behavior. Households are now encouraged to shift energy usage to peak sunlight hours, using appliances, charging EVs, or heating water when solar output is highest. This behavioral coordination is part of the invisible architecture of a smart grid, one that relies not only on code and circuits, but on informed decisions by everyday people. Still, the challenge remains. As demand for energy increases, driven by data centers, AI systems, and digital consumption. How do we balance the grid without falling back on fossil fuels? The answer lies in diversity. No single source will save us. We need solar when it shines, wind when it blows, hydro when it rains, and storage to bridge the gaps. The energy mix of the future won't be a straight line. It'll be a web, a network of sources and users connected not just by cables, but by intention. And if we do it right, the next version of the power grid will be not only greener, but smarter, built around human needs, environmental limits, and a shared desire to make the system work for everyone. Solar energy didn't begin on rooftops or in deserts. It began in space. In the 1950s and 60s, the first solar panels powered satellites, orbiting silently above Earth. Back then, solar power was reserved for science, not society. It was a high-tech marvel, but too expensive, too exotic, too distant for everyday use. Then came the oil crises of the 1970s, with fossil fuel prices soaring and nuclear energy facing public backlash. The world began to look for alternatives. That's when solar came back down to earth, quite literally, from isolated research stations to small residential experiments. The seeds of today's revolution were quietly planted decades ago. Today, we find ourselves in a dramatically different landscape. Solar panels are now everywhere, and cheaper than ever. But even as the technology becomes accessible, new questions emerge. How do we manage seasonal variability? What happens when the sun doesn't shine for days? Thanks to major advances in battery storage, thermal systems, and even hydrogen production, many of those challenges are becoming manageable. In places like Europe, solar is already being combined with wind and hydro to create energy mixes that span seasons and stabilize the grid. Smart consumption strategies and regional cooperation are filling in the gaps. But the most ambitious frontier is still above us. Space-based solar stations, once confined to sci-fi, are now in early development. Japan, China, the US, and the EU are testing satellites that could beam solar energy to Earth via microwaves. The advantages are huge: uninterrupted sunlight, no weather interference, and constant production. But the costs are enormous, and the technical challenges are vast. Will space solar be part of the solution? Maybe in the long term. But for now, the real power lies in the technologies already at our fingertips. Panels on homes, batteries in basements, microgrids in rural areas, smarter grids in cities. The road ahead won't be built in orbit. It will be built one rooftop at a time. And it all started with a single satellite catching sunlight, thousands of miles above the planet it would one day help power. We stand at a crossroads with the tools of the future already in our hands. Solar energy is no longer a theoretical solution or a luxury for the wealthy. It is here, it is real, and it is increasingly within reach. From conflict zones to megacities, from outer space to suburban rooftops. The light from the sun is powering a silent revolution, and what happens next depends entirely on us. We have the technology, we have the infrastructure, we have proof that solar works. Not just in labs, but in hospitals, schools, homes, deserts, and war-torn streets. The cost curve has bent. The breakthroughs have arrived. What remains is collective will. Still, the window is not infinite. Climate change is no longer a warning. It's a visible force reshaping coastlines, fueling wildfires, and displacing millions. Every delay has a price. Every tenth of a degree means billions in damage and lives disrupted. If we fail to act, the sun won't be to blame. We will, but if we act now, boldly, rapidly, creatively, we can reshape our relationship with energy. We can decentralize power, democratize production, and protect the planet. The solar transition is not just a technical task, it's a cultural one. It asks us to rethink consumption, to embrace resilience, and to choose abundance over dependence. The beauty of solar power is that it empowers people. A single panel can light a school. A cluster can power a neighborhood. A network can replace a grid. The energy doesn't have to come from far away. It can come from above, and it can stay right where it's needed. So the real question is no longer whether solar energy will shape the future. It's whether we will shape it with purpose. The choice is not technological. It's personal, political, and urgent. The sun rises every day. The revolution is waiting. What we do with that light is up to us. If this story moved you, don't let it stop here. Share this video, start the conversation, and let your voice be part of the change. Subscribe for more stories that matter, and join us as we follow the light. One panel, one idea, one action at a time. The sun rises for all of us. Let's rise with it.